Hello and welcome. My name is Marcos Quinones and this is Self-Psychology. Today I'm going to talk about a situation that happened this week where one of my employees didn't show up to work, and the employee was supposed to open the front door so that my clients could get in and out of the building after hours. Early hours, we have a security person at the front that takes care of that. However, in the after hours, I have to hire someone to be there. So I was expecting this employee to show up, and the employee didn't show up. And what ended up happening was that it caused a bit of a chaos with clients waiting outside, clients getting frustrated, clients missing each other or seeing each other as they came in and out of the session, which is not so bad. But the worst situation that happened was that I started ruminating within the session about what was going on. So initially, when I found out that the employee hadn't shown up, and I started thinking about this within the session, I was able to quiet my mind and get back into the present moment to do the work I was doing by telling myself that I'm not sure what's going on with this employee. That I hope the employee is safe, but it's very possible that that something happened to the employee where the employee was unable to come to work. So I was able with that thought to switch the emotion from an angry, frustrated type of emotion to a concern. And concern is a healthy negative emotion. So in theory, concern is not going to get in the way of my functioning, in this case, conducting my therapy and my work. So I was able to tell myself this on the fly, that there may be something wrong with her, so I was concerned and able to refocus on what I was doing. However, when that client session was over and I walked the client down to the door and opened the door for the next client, I was able to check my phone and notice that the employee had sent a phone message that the employee just lost track of time and they're not going to come in. So now the emotion switched back to anger, frustration, because I was telling myself, how dare that employee do this to me? They're not supposed to do this to me. They must not do this to me. And that caused me to have this anger. It was like an injustice being done. And then the ruminating thoughts of so much that I do for this employee, and this is how I get treated, right? Of course, those thoughts weren't helping me because they were producing an emotion of anger and subsequently I kept ruminating about that. So in session, again, I was able to tell myself that there must be something mentally wrong with this employee if they would just simply not show up. And I was able to convince myself of that, and again, switch my emotion from an unhealthy, angry emotion to a healthy concern emotion. So by telling myself the employee has a mental issue where she would just not show up, I was able to bring that emotion to a different emotion and function. So I was able to refocus my attention to the present moment with the emotion of concern. Now, after I was able to finish my work that evening and apologize to my clients because there was frustration on their behalf of not being able to get in the building, I was able to do an ABC on myself where I noticed the activating event was that the employee didn't come to work. The belief was that the employee was supposed to come to work, right? They should have come to work. They must come to work. Right? And obviously, that's an irrational belief because the employee did not come to work. So I can't must here because if I must, it's only going to produce anxiety, anger, and that emotion is unhealthy and it's going to get in the way of me functioning and feeling calm. So I noticed the emotion was anger, and my behavior was to ruminate about it, to speak about it, and write about it, which wasn't healthy. What I did was dispute the thought of me, of the employee having to do this, when in fact I should have known, based on other people telling me, that there's a high likelihood that the employee wasn't going to show up and do the work. So had I known ahead of time, had I not trusted, or had I made that thought a little more present that the client may not show up to work, then my reaction wouldn't have been with the anger. However, I was trusting unconditionally, and what ended up happening was that the employee didn't show up to work. So, um, so the thought was irrational, and there's no evidence that the employee should show up to work because the employee has only shown up to work one time prior. There's no track record of the employee coming into work. And finally, it doesn't help me for me to tell myself that the employee is supposed to come to work, you know? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, socially, society, we're expected to show up to work. Okay, sure, we're expected. However, it's not a must. We don't must show up to work. We can decide not to, and it happens every day. So my new effective philosophy was that the employee doesn't have to come to work. Okay, that's just a reality of life. And employees can take off and they don't have to call, and things could go a little chaotic. However, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me or the way I think or the trust that I give people. So, so I was able to internalize this thought that employees aren't going to always be consistent, and that's okay. That's okay. I just need to put in place some backup systems so when that happens, I can be covered. And I can do this if I'm not disturbed, if I'm not angry. So now that my anger has subsided, I've been able to put some mechanism into place so that that doesn't occur again. I hope you understood this and keep in tune. I will continue to talk about how I use CBT to help myself, and possibly you can too. Take care.